The email hit my inbox at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, right between a client report and my wife's grocery list reminder. Subject line, Hawaii wedding update, final headcount needed. I clicked it open, expecting the usual family drama about seating arrangements or dietary restrictions. What I found instead made me read it 3 times before the words actually sank in. Hi everyone, just confirming our final guest list for the big day. Can't wait to see you all in paradise. Here's who we have confirmed. Melinda, Brad, Sophie, Mom, Dad, Aunt Carol, Uncle Jim. The list went on. 15 names, 15 family members who would be sipping cocktails on Maui beaches while I... What? Stayed home to water the plants? My name wasn't there. I scrolled down, thinking maybe there was a second page, maybe my wife's sister Jessica had made some formatting error. But no. There it was, clear as day. If you're not on this list, we're so sorry, but we had to make some tough cuts due to venue capacity. Tough cuts. Right. I leaned back in my office chair, the kind of cheap mesh thing you get from discount furniture stores, and tried to process this. $15,000. That's what I'd contributed to this wedding extravaganza. 15 grand from my financial analyst salary, money I'd scraped together by skipping lunches and driving my 10-year-old Honda instead of upgrading. The door to my home office creaked open. Melinda poked her head in, her blonde hair perfectly styled even at 4 in the afternoon. She worked in public relations, and she looked the part, polished, camera-ready, the kind of woman who could sell ice to penguins. Hey, honey, working late again? Her voice had that sing-song quality she used when she wanted something. I turned my laptop screen toward her. Want to explain this? She glanced at the email, and for just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Relief? Then her PR mask slipped back into place. Oh, that. Yeah, there was some confusion with the guest list. Jessica had to make some last-minute changes because of the venue capacity. 15 people, Melinda. 15 people are going, and I'm not one of them. She walked into the office, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Everything about our house screamed middle-class success, the kind of success that required both our incomes and careful budgeting, the kind of success that made $15,000 a significant chunk of change. Look, I know it's weird, but Jessica said the venue is really strict about numbers, fire code issues or something. She sat on the edge of my desk, a move that used to make my heart skip. Now it just felt calculated. Besides, you hate destination weddings. Remember what you said about my cousin's thing in Cabo? I remembered. I'd complained about the expense, the time off work, the hassle of traveling. But this was different. This was family. This was my money paying for everyone else's vacation while I got left behind like some unwanted relative. Who's Brad? I asked, pointing to the name on the list. Brad? Oh, he's Jessica's wedding planner. Well, more like a coordinator. He's been helping with all the PR stuff for her business, too. Wedding planner. Since when did wedding planners get invited to destination weddings as guests? I'd been to plenty of weddings in my 48 years, and I'd never seen the hired help getting a seat at the reception. So let me get this straight, I said, keeping my voice level. I pay 15 grand for this wedding, but the wedding planner gets my seat? Melinda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and I caught a glimpse of the name on the screen, Brad. She quickly flipped it face down. It's not like that, Tom. You're being dramatic. Dramatic. That was her favorite word for whenever I had the audacity to question anything. Dramatic when I asked why our credit card bills kept climbing. Dramatic when I wondered why she was working so many evening events. Dramatic when I suggested we should probably save money instead of spending it on designer handbags. Fine, I said. When's the wedding again? Next Saturday. We fly out Thursday morning. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. I should probably start packing soon. We. She said we, but she meant everyone except me. I watched her walk toward the door, then called out, Melinda? She turned back, eyebrows raised. Have fun in Hawaii. Something passed between us in that moment. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something, then closed it. Instead, she just nodded and left, her heels clicking down the hallway toward our bedroom. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I sat there for a long time after she was gone, staring at that email. 15 names. 15 people who mattered enough to include. And then there was me, the guy who paid for it all, but didn't rate an invitation. My phone buzzed with a text from my old friend Lenny. Beer tonight? Got some stuff to tell you about that gym membership. I looked around my home office, at the framed photos of Melinda and me from better times, at the stack of bills I'd been working through, at the laptop screen still showing that guest list. Sure, I texted back. I've got some stuff to tell you too. I had no idea that night would change everything, that Lenny's rundown boxing gym would become my sanctuary, and that the conversation we'd have over cheap beer would plant the seeds of something I never thought I was capable of. Revenge. But that comes later. First, I had to get through the next few days of watching my wife pack for a tropical vacation I'd funded, but wasn't invited to. I had to smile and nod while she talked about snorkeling in luau's and how much fun everyone was going to have. I had to pretend I didn't notice her texting Brad at all hours, or that she'd started doing her hair differently, or that she'd bought new lingerie for a trip I wasn't taking. Most of all, I had to pretend I was still the same trusting, naive husband who'd been writing checks without asking questions. But I wasn't that guy anymore. That guy had gotten his wake-up call in the form of a guest list that didn't include his name. The new guy? He was going to be much more interesting. Lenny's Fitness wasn't the kind of place you'd find in the suburbs. Tucked between a pawn shop and a check-cashing place, it looked like the kind of gym where serious people went to work out their problems with iron and sweat. The sign out front was missing 2 letters, so it just read, Lenny's Fitness. I pushed through the heavy door and was hit with the smell of rubber mats and determination. Lenny stood behind a counter that had seen better decades, his gray hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing a tank top that showed off arms still thick with muscle despite his 50-something years. Tom, about time you showed up. He came around the counter and grabbed my hand in one of those grips that reminded you he used to be a cop. I was starting to think you'd gone soft on me. Just been busy with work and family stuff. Yeah, about that family stuff. His expression got serious. Let's grab those beers and talk. He led me to a small office behind the main gym floor, past guys hitting heavy bags and grunting through deadlifts. The office was cramped, filled with file cabinets and old boxing posters. Lenny pulled 2 bottles of beer from a mini fridge and handed me one. So, he said, settling into his chair, how long have you known about Melinda and this Brad guy? The beer bottle slipped in my hand. I set it down carefully on his desk, buying time while my brain tried to process what he'd just said. What are you talking about? Lenny studied my face for a long moment, then shook his head. Aw, hell. You didn't know. Know what, Lenny? He opened his desk drawer and pulled out his phone, scrolling through photos. My nephew Danny works security at the Riverside Hotel. You know, the fancy place downtown where your wife's company does all those events? I knew it. Melinda had dragged me to a few company parties there, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers, the kind of place that charged $20 for a cocktail. Danny's been working there about 6 months now. Good kid, keeps his eyes open, doesn't gossip much. But when he saw your wife there last week, Lenny turned his phone toward me. He figured I should know. The photo was grainy, clearly taken from a security camera, but there was no mistaking what I was looking at. Melinda, in the red dress I'd complimented her on when she left for her client dinner, sitting very close to a man I didn't recognize. His hand was on her thigh, and she was leaning into him like they were sharing secrets. That's from last Tuesday, Lenny said quietly. Danny said they were there for about 3 hours. Very friendly. I stared at the photo, trying to make it make sense. Maybe it was just business. She meets with clients all the time. Lenny swiped to the next photo. This one showed them walking toward the hotel elevators, his arm around her waist, her hand resting on his chest. Business, Lenny said. Right. The room felt like it was tilting. I took a long pull from my beer, but it tasted like cardboard. There's more, Lenny said. Danny did some asking around. Turns out this Brad guy has been a regular there for months. Always with married women, always picking up the tab with someone else's credit card. Someone else's credit card? Yeah. And here's the thing that really got Danny's attention. The card he's been using, it's registered to Thomas Mitchell. Thomas Mitchell. That was me. I set the beer down and put my head in my hands. Everything was starting to make sense now. The increased credit card bills that Melinda always had explanations for. The new clothes, the spa days, the client dinners that happened more and more frequently. How long? I asked. Danny thinks about 4 months based on when he first started seeing them together. 4 months. Right around the time Melinda had started talking about Jessica's wedding, about how we needed to help make it special, about how important it was to support family. The wedding, I said, looking up at Lenny. I'm not invited to Jessica's wedding in Hawaii. 15 people are going, and I'm not one of them. But Brad is. Lenny's jaw tightened. They're going together? Apparently. I told him about the email, about the guest list, about the $15,000 I'd contributed to fund my wife's romantic getaway with her lover. When I finished, Lenny was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "What are you going to do?" I don't know. Confront her? Demand answers? File for divorce? You could do that, Lenny said. Or what? He leaned forward in his chair. Tom, in my 20 years as a cop, I saw a lot of cheating spouses, the ones who just confronted their partners head on. They usually got screwed in the divorce. The cheater had time to hide assets, get their story straight, play the victim. So what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you be smart about this. Take some time, gather information, figure out exactly what you're dealing with before you make your move. I thought about that. It made sense, in a cold, calculating way. But it also felt wrong somehow, like I was stooping to their level. I'm not a sneaky person, Lenny. I don't do games and manipulation. No, you don't. That's why you're sitting here finding out about your wife's affair from my nephew instead of figuring it out yourself. His voice wasn't harsh, just matter of fact. Tom, these people have been playing you for months. They've been using your money to fund their relationship while cutting you out of your own family. You think they're going to suddenly start playing fair if you confront them? He had a point. I thought about Melinda's reaction to the guest list, how quickly she'd had an explanation ready, how smoothly she'd deflected my questions about Brad. What would you do? I asked. Me? I'd disappear for a while. Let them think they won. Let them get comfortable, make mistakes. And then... He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. Then I'd remind them that actions have consequences. Disappear how? You've got vacation time saved up, right? Take it. All of it. Tell Melinda you're going on a fishing trip or something, somewhere with no cell service. Let her go to Hawaii thinking she's got you completely fooled. And then? Then you come back and show her what happens when you underestimate Tom Mitchell. I sat there for a long time, thinking about it. The old me, the trusting husband who wrote checks without asking questions, would have gone home and demanded answers, would have given Melinda a chance to explain, to make excuses, to turn it around on me somehow. But that guy was gone. He'd been erased the moment I saw my name missing from that guest list. Okay, I said, finally. But I'm going to need help. Lenny grinned, and this time it was genuine. Brother, you've got it. Danny's got connections all over this city. Security guys, hotel workers, restaurant staff, people who see everything and remember faces. What about the gym membership you mentioned? Oh, that. He gestured toward the main floor. I was going to offer you a deal on a membership, but now? It's free. You're going to need to get in shape for what's coming. What's coming? A war, Tom. And wars aren't won by the nicest guy. They're won by the guy who's willing to do whatever it takes. I looked through the office window at the guys working out. Men who looked like they'd been through things, who'd learned hard lessons and come out stronger. When do we start? I asked. Right now. Go home, pack a bag, and tell your wife you're taking that fishing trip. Make it believable. Then come back here tomorrow morning, and we'll start planning. I stood up, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Purpose. Lenny? Yeah? Thanks for telling me. I know it wasn't easy. He shrugged. That's what friends are for. Besides, I never liked Melinda much anyway. Too polished, like she was always performing. As I walked back through the gym, past the heavy bags and weight machines, I realized he was right. Melinda was always performing, always playing a role. The loving wife, the successful businesswoman, the supportive family member. But performances eventually end, and when they do, the real person underneath gets exposed. I was about to find out who my wife really was. And more importantly, I was about to find out who I really was. The old Tom Mitchell was about to go fishing. The new one? He was about to go hunting. I told Melinda about the fishing trip over dinner the next night. She was picking at her salad, scrolling through her phone with that little smile she got when she was texting someone interesting. So, I was thinking, I said, cutting into my steak, I might take some vacation time while you're in Hawaii. Maybe drive up to Lake Superior, do some fishing. She looked up from her phone, blinking like she'd forgotten I was there. Oh, that sounds nice. Yeah, I found this cabin rental online. No cell service, no internet. Just me and the fish for a week. A week? For just a second, something flickered across her face. Relief? That's great, honey. You've been working so hard lately. I thought so too. I already cleared it with my boss. That part was true. I'd taken 2 weeks of vacation, though I wouldn't be spending them at any cabin. I'll probably leave Thursday morning, same day you fly out. Perfect. She was already looking back at her phone. That way we can both just relax and recharge. Recharge. Right. I watched her for a moment. This woman I'd been married to for 12 years. When had she become a stranger? When had her smiles become performances and her conversations become scripts? Who are you texting? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Oh, just Jessica. Wedding stuff. She set the phone face down on the table. You know how crazy she gets about details. I nodded and went back to my dinner. But I was thinking about Lenny's nephew Danny and his security camera photos. About credit card bills and mysterious expenses. About a guest list that included everyone except the guy paying for it. Thursday morning came faster than I expected. I was up early, throwing clothes into a duffel bag while Melinda showered. Her suitcase was already packed and sitting by the bedroom door, expensive luggage that I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. You sure you have everything? She called from the bathroom. Just some old clothes and fishing gear, I called back. Nothing fancy needed where I'm going. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, her hair wet and slicked back. Even without makeup, she was beautiful. That's what made this whole thing hurt so much more. I'm going to miss you, she said, but she was looking at herself in the dresser mirror, not at me. Miss you too. She kissed me goodbye at the front door, a quick peck that felt more like habit than affection. Then she was gone, her heels clicking down the driveway toward her car, her phone already pressed to her ear. I watched through the window as she backed out of the driveway. The moment her car disappeared around the corner, I grabbed my bag and headed for my Honda. Lenny was waiting for me at the gym, along with a guy I didn't recognize. Mid-30s, thin build, wearing jeans and a t-shirt that said Hotel Security across the chest. Tom, meet Danny, Lenny said. Danny, this is the guy I told you about. Danny shook my hand and gave me a look that was part sympathy, part professional assessment. Sorry about your situation, man. But don't worry, we're going to help you figure out exactly what you're dealing with. What's the plan? I asked. Lenny pulled out a notebook filled with his scratchy handwriting. First, we establish a timeline. Danny's going to go through the hotel's security footage for the past 4 months, see how often Melinda and Brad have been meeting there. Can he do that legally? Danny grinned. I work security. Part of my job is reviewing footage for irregularities. If I happen to notice some patterns while I'm doing my job, well, that's just being thorough. What else? I've got a friend who works at the credit card company, Lenny continued. He's going to pull your statements and highlight anything that looks suspicious. Restaurants, hotels, purchases that don't match up with what Melinda told you she was doing. And while they're in Hawaii? That's where it gets interesting. Lenny's smile was predatory. Danny's got contacts at the resort where they're staying. We're going to get real-time updates on their activities. Photos, if possible. I felt a chill run down my spine. I don't want to become some kind of stalker. You're not stalking, Danny said. You're gathering evidence. Your wife is using your money to fund her affair, and you need documentation for when this goes to divorce court. He was right, but it still felt wrong. Then I thought about that guest list again, about sitting at home while 15 people enjoyed a vacation I'd paid for. Okay, I said. What do I do? You disappear, Lenny said. Really disappear. No social media, no credit card purchases, no cell phone activity. For the next week, Tom Mitchell doesn't exist. Where am I supposed to go? Here. He gestured around the gym. I've got a small apartment upstairs that I use sometimes when I'm working late. It's not fancy, but it's private. You can stay there while we do our investigation. And then? Then we plan your comeback. But first, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with. The next few days were like living in a strange, alternate reality. I spent my mornings working out in Lenny's gym, learning how to hit a heavy bag and discovering muscles I'd forgotten I had. The physical activity felt good, like I was burning away years of complacency and self-doubt. The afternoons were for planning. Danny brought me printouts of credit card statements, highlighted in yellow wherever Melinda had spent money at restaurants or hotels during times when she'd told me she was working late or meeting clients. The pattern was clear and damning: expensive dinners for 2, hotel bar charges, even a jewelry purchase from a store I'd never heard of. Look at this, Danny said, pointing to a charge from 3 weeks ago. Riverside Hotel, room service for 2, charged to your card at 11:30 at night. What did she tell you she was doing that night? I thought back. Client emergency. Said she had to work late at the office. Right, except she was ordering champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries to a hotel room. Each revelation was like a small punch to the gut. Not just the cheating, but the casual way she'd lied about it. The elaborate stories she'd constructed to cover her tracks. But the worst part came on Saturday, when Danny's contact at the Hawaiian resort sent us photos. I stared at my laptop screen, at pictures of my wife and Brad lounging by a pool, sharing drinks with little umbrellas in them. In one photo, she was laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting on his chest. In another, they were walking hand in hand along a beach at sunset. They looked happy. That was the thing that hurt the most. They looked genuinely, effortlessly happy together. There's more, Danny said quietly. He clicked to the next photo. It was from the wedding ceremony. Jessica in her white dress, surrounded by family, everyone smiling and celebrating. And there, in the background, was Melinda in a blue dress I'd never seen before, standing next to Brad like they were a couple. She introduced him as her boyfriend, Danny said, reading from a text message on his phone. My contact heard her telling people that you two were separated. Separated. So not only was she cheating on me, she was rewriting our entire relationship to make it socially acceptable. I closed the laptop and walked to the window of Lenny's small apartment. Outside, the city looked the same as always, but everything felt different. I felt different. Tom? Lenny's voice was gentle. You okay? No, I said. But I will be. What are you thinking? I turned back to face him and Danny. I'm thinking that when they get back from their romantic vacation that I paid for, they're going to find out that Tom Mitchell isn't as naive as they thought. What's the plan? I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it's going to be public. Melinda's whole world revolves around image and reputation. She wants to play games? Fine. But we're going to play by my rules. Danny grinned. Now you're talking. Over the next 2 days, while Melinda and Brad continued their Hawaiian paradise, we planned. We researched. We prepared. And by the time their plane landed back home, I was ready for war. The old Tom Mitchell had gone fishing and disappeared forever. The new one was about to make his debut, and he was going to be very, very memorable. Melinda texted me Sunday night while I was doing push-ups in Lenny's apartment. Landing in 2 hours. Hope you caught lots of fish. Can't wait to see you. Can't wait to see me. Right. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I finished my workout, showered, and drove back to our house for the first time in a week. It felt strange walking through the front door, like I was visiting a museum of my old life. Everything was exactly as I'd left it, except for a few details that told the real story. Mail piled up on the kitchen counter, mail that should have been brought in days ago if Melinda had actually been home between her client meetings before the trip. A wine glass in the sink that I hadn't used, with lipstick marks that weren't Melinda's usual shade. I was sitting in the living room when her car pulled into the driveway. Through the window, I watched her grab her expensive luggage and walk toward the house. She looked tanned and relaxed, like someone who'd just spent a week in paradise. Tom? She came through the door with a bright smile and arms full of shopping bags. You're back. How was the fishing? Quiet, I said. Peaceful. Caught a few things. She kissed my cheek, and I caught a whiff of expensive sunscreen and something else. Men's cologne that wasn't mine. I missed you so much, she said, but she was already moving toward the kitchen, unpacking what looked like souvenirs. The wedding was beautiful. Jessica looked amazing. I got you a shirt. She pulled out a gaudy Hawaiian shirt covered in pineapples and palm trees, the kind of thing tourists buy in airport gift shops. Thanks, I said, taking it from her. Looks expensive. Oh, it wasn't too bad. I used the emergency credit card. She was unpacking more stuff, coffee, macadamia nuts, a bottle of rum. I figured since I was there representing both of us, I should bring back some nice things. Representing both of us. That was rich, considering she'd introduced Brad as her boyfriend to the entire family. How was everyone? I asked. Great. Everyone asked about you, of course. I told them you were off on your fishing adventure. Her voice was light, casual, like we were discussing the weather. Sophie said to tell you hi. Sophie, Jessica's sister-in-law, the one who'd helped orchestrate this whole thing. I made a mental note to deal with her later. Any pictures? I asked. Oh, tons. She pulled out her phone, then seemed to hesitate. But I'm so tired right now. Maybe tomorrow I'll show you everything. Of course. Can't show pictures when half of them feature her with another man. I should probably unpack and do some laundry, she said, grabbing her suitcase. I've got a big presentation tomorrow morning. I watched her head upstairs, noting how she took her phone with her. In the old days, she would have left it charging in the kitchen. Now it never left her side. While she was upstairs, I checked the mail she'd brought in. Mixed in with the usual bills and catalogs was something interesting, a credit card statement that had arrived while we were both supposedly away. I opened it carefully, scanning the charges. There it was, Maui Resort, room service, spa treatments, excursions, all charged to our joint account, all for 2 people. But what really caught my attention was a charge from 3 days ago, while she was supposedly in Hawaii, from a jewelry store here in town. I pulled out my phone and called the store. Hi, I'm trying to track down a purchase made on my credit card, I said when someone answered. Wednesday afternoon, about $300? Sure, let me check. Oh yes, The men's watch. Very nice piece. Is there a problem with it? Men's watch. $300. Purchased while she was supposedly in Hawaii. No problem, I said. Just wanted to confirm the purchase. Thanks. I hung up and sat there for a moment, processing this new information. She'd bought Brad a watch, a $300 watch with my money, and she'd done it while lying to me about being in Hawaii. The audacity was breathtaking. Tom? Melinda's voice came from upstairs. Can you help me with something? I found her in our bedroom, standing next to the bed with her suitcase open. She'd changed into pajamas, new ones I'd never seen before, silk and expensive looking. The zipper's stuck on my toiletry bag, she said. Can you take a look? I walked over and examined the bag. The zipper wasn't stuck, it was locked. A tiny padlock held it closed, the kind you might use to secure something valuable. That's weird, I said. Why is it locked? She laughed, but it sounded forced. Oh, that. I started doing that after I heard about people going through luggage at airports. Identity theft, you know? Identity theft. Sure. Where's the key? In my purse somewhere. I'll find it later. She took the bag from me and set it on her dresser. I'm exhausted. Mind if we just go to sleep? Of course. We went through our usual nighttime routine, but everything felt different. She brushed her teeth longer than usual, like she was trying to wash away evidence. She kept her phone on her nightstand instead of charging it in the kitchen. And when she thought I was asleep, I heard her texting someone. The next morning, she was up early and out the door before I'd even finished my coffee. Big presentation? She called over her shoulder. Might be late tonight. Might be late. Of course she would. After she left, I called in sick to work and drove back to Lenny's gym. He was waiting for me with Danny and a new face, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Tom, meet Rita, Lenny said. She's a private investigator, used to work with me back in the day. Rita shook my hand with a grip that could crack walnuts. Lenny filled me in on your situation. I've been doing some digging. What kind of digging? She pulled out a file folder thick with documents. The kind that's going to make your divorce attorney very happy. Your wife and her boyfriend have been busy. She spread photos across Lenny's desk, surveillance shots of Melinda and Brad at various locations around the city. Restaurants, hotels, shopping centers, all taken over the past week while I was supposedly fishing. They never went to Hawaii, Rita said. Well, they did, but they came back 3 days early and have been shacking up at his apartment ever since. I stared at the photos. She came home last night. Right. She's trying to maintain the illusion that everything's normal. But look at this. Rita pulled out a bank statement. Brad's been depositing money into his account. Money that matches exactly with withdrawals from your joint account. She's paying him? More than that. She's been transferring money to him for months. Small amounts at first, then bigger ones. My guess is she's planning to leave you and wants to make sure her boyfriend is financially comfortable. The room felt like it was spinning. It wasn't just an affair. It was theft. Systematic, planned theft. There's more, Rita continued. I talked to some people at her company. Turns out there's been talk about her relationship with Brad for months. Everyone knows about it. She's not even trying to hide it at work. Everyone knew. While I was sitting at home like an idiot, writing checks and trusting my wife, everyone in her professional circle knew she was cheating on me. What do you want to do? Lenny asked. I looked at the photos scattered across his desk, at the evidence of months of deception and theft, at the proof that my marriage had been a lie for longer than I wanted to think about. I want to destroy them, I said quietly. Legally? Rita asked. Publicly. I want everyone who knows about this affair to see what happens when you steal from Tom Mitchell. I want it to be so humiliating, so complete, that neither of them ever recovers. Lenny grinned. Now you're talking my language. What did you have in mind? Rita asked. I thought about it for a moment, remembering Melinda's world of public relations and image management. Her entire career was built on controlling narratives and managing reputations. She wants to play games with my money and my life, I said. Fine, but the game ends when I say it does, and I'm going to make sure everyone's watching when it happens. Over the next hour, we planned something that would have been unthinkable to the old Tom Mitchell. Something public, devastating, and absolutely legal. Something that would remind my wife and her boyfriend that actions have consequences. And the consequences were about to be spectacular. The plan took 2 weeks to set up properly. 2 weeks of Melinda coming home late with increasingly elaborate excuses. 2 weeks of watching her lie to my face while she drained our accounts to fund her new life with Brad. But I was patient. Rita had taught me that revenge, like any good investigation, required timing and preparation. The opportunity came in the form of Melinda's company's annual awards banquet, a black tie affair at the Riverside Hotel where she'd been meeting Brad for months. 300 people from the city's business community, including reporters from the local paper and business journal. Melinda had been excited about it for weeks. Her team was up for an award, and she'd bought a new dress that cost more than my monthly car payment. She'd even suggested I should come as her date. "It would be good for you to network," she'd said over breakfast that morning. "Meet some new people, maybe find some consulting opportunities." Consulting opportunities, right. More likely she wanted me there as cover, to play the devoted husband while she flirted with Brad in front of half the city. "Sounds great," I'd told her. "I'll rent a tux." What I didn't tell her was that I'd already rented the tux, and that Rita had spent the past week preparing a very special presentation for the evening's entertainment. The banquet was everything I'd expected: overpriced food, boring speeches, and lots of people in expensive clothes talking about how successful they were. Melinda worked the room like a professional, introducing me to clients and colleagues with that practiced smile of hers. "This is my husband Tom," she'd say. "He's in financial analysis." Then she'd steer the conversation away from me and toward her latest projects. I played my part perfectly, the supportive spouse, proud of his wife's success, content to stand in the background while she shined. Several people commented on what a lucky woman she was to have such a devoted husband. If they only knew. Brad was there, of course, working the room in his expensive suit and designer watch, the watch I'd bought him, though he didn't know I knew that. He and Melinda were careful not to interact too obviously, but I caught the looks they exchanged across the room, the way they maneuvered to be near each other during the cocktail hour. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced as dinner wound down, "we have a special presentation this evening. One of our community members has prepared a tribute to the power of partnership in business and in life." That was my cue. I stood up from our table, ignoring Melinda's surprised look, and walked to the front of the room. A screen had been set up for presentations, and Rita's tech guy had already loaded everything we needed. "Thank you," I said, taking the microphone. "I want to talk tonight about partnerships, about trust, about what happens when people work together toward common goals." The room settled into polite attention. Melinda was watching me with growing confusion, probably wondering why I hadn't mentioned this presentation to her. "My wife, Melinda, and I have been partners for 12 years, I continued, clicking to the first slide, a wedding photo of us from happier times. "We've built a life together, shared dreams, supported each other's ambitions." A few people smiled. This seemed like it was going to be a sweet tribute to marriage. "Partnership requires trust," I said, clicking to the next slide. "It requires honesty. It requires both people working toward the same goals." The next slide showed our joint bank account statements with large withdrawals highlighted in red. For example, when your partner tells you they're working late, you trust that they're actually working. Click. Security camera footage of Melinda and Brad at the hotel bar. Timestamps showing dates when she'd told me she was in client meetings. The room was getting quiet now. People were starting to realize this wasn't going to be a typical tribute. When your partner asks you to contribute $15,000 to a family wedding, You trust that you'll be included in that family celebration. Click. The email showing the guest list for Jessica's wedding, with my name conspicuously absent. Melinda had gone pale. She was half standing at our table, looking like she wanted to run but couldn't move. And when your partner introduces someone as a wedding coordinator or business consultant, you trust that's what they actually are. Click. Photos from Hawaii showing Melinda and Brad as a couple, including the one where she was introducing him as her boyfriend. The room was silent now. 300 people staring at a very public marriage implosion, watching my wife's carefully constructed professional image crumble in real time. But the most important thing about partnership, I continued, my voice steady and calm, is that both partners should know when it's over. Final click. Divorce papers, already filed, already served. Rita had handed them to Melinda's assistant that afternoon, with instructions to deliver them after the presentation. Melinda, consider this my formal notice that our partnership is dissolved, effective immediately. I set the microphone down and walked back toward our table, but not to sit down. I stopped next to Melinda, who was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. The house is already on the market, I said quietly, so only she could hear. The accounts are frozen pending the divorce proceedings. And that watch you bought, Brad? I reported the credit card as stolen, so he might want to return it before the police get involved. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. I looked across the table at Brad, who had turned an interesting shade of green. Oh, and Brad? That consulting fee Melinda's been paying you? The IRS considers that taxable income. You might want to talk to an accountant. Then I walked out of the ballroom, leaving behind 300 shocked witnesses and 2 people whose lives had just imploded as spectacularly as they'd tried to implode mine. In the lobby, Lenny was waiting with Rita and Danny, all of them grinning like they'd just won the lottery. How'd it feel? Lenny asked. I thought about it for a moment, remembering the look on Melinda's face when she realized her perfect public image had just been destroyed in front of everyone who mattered in her professional world. Like justice, I said. My phone started buzzing with calls and texts. Probably Melinda, probably her family, probably half the people who'd been in that ballroom. I turned it off and handed it to Rita. You might want to change your number, she said. This is going to be a big story. She was right. By the next morning, the video of my presentation had gone viral on social media. The local paper ran a story about it. The Business Journal called it the most dramatic corporate event in recent memory. Melinda's company quietly asked for her resignation. Brad's consulting business dried up overnight. Jessica's family, who had been so quick to exclude me from their wedding, suddenly wanted nothing to do with the woman who'd humiliated their relatives so publicly. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I got the house, half the assets, and my self-respect back. Melinda got a harsh lesson in what happens when you underestimate someone. I never saw her or Brad again after that night at the hotel. I heard through mutual friends that they'd moved to another city, trying to start over somewhere their reputations hadn't preceded them. As for me, I kept working out at Lenny's gym. I started a consulting business of my own. Turns out there's a market for financial analysis among small business owners who can't afford the big firms. And I learned something important about myself. I'm much stronger than I thought I was. The old Tom Mitchell had been weak, trusting, easily manipulated. The new one? He was someone you didn't want to cross, and he was finally, completely free.